Islam Makhachev has a lot to say about Dustin Poirier's move up to welterweight and exactly what we're going to be diving into in this video. Let's get right into all the details that we know so far about this move, as well as other UFC news that's been making the rounds. Makhachev says the move is for money, not the title. Islam Makhachev thinks Dustin Poirier has given up on his title hopes in the UFC. Poirier's coming off a submission loss to lightweight champion Charles Oliveira at UFC 269 in December, but he fell short in his quest for undisputed gold for a second time. Diamond's first attempt came at UFC 242 when he was submitted by Makhachev's good friend Khabib Nurmagomedov. Since losing to Oliveira, Poirier has teased a move up to welterweight. Moreover, his name has been linked to Nate Diaz, but Makhachev, who is on his own path to the title, thinks Poirier has shifted his focus to big money fights. Makhachev says that Poirier knows that he won't be champion anymore, so he just wants to make a lot of money off of his fights. Dustin Poirier has fought for the undisputed lightweight strap twice in his UFC career, falling short both times. His first title fight came against Khabib Nurmagomedov at UFC 242. The Diamond then fought Charles Oliveira for the belt and fell short yet again after losing to the Brazilian champion via a rear naked choke submission. The Louisiana native has since hinted towards moving up to the 170-pound division via social media. However, there's no concrete news about his next fight. According to all accounts, since the Diamond has been bulking up since his December loss, it seems he is getting his sights on a welterweight fight with Nate Diaz. Originally scheduled to fight Diaz back in 2018 at UFC 230, Poirier had to withdraw due to injury and the fight was never rescheduled. Dana White, UFC president, has not confirmed there will be a fight between the two, even though both Diaz and Poirier are game to make it happen. Now, moving on to other UFC news that's been circling the block. Khabib laughs off Jake Paul's fight offer. As much as he laughed off the idea that Paul could actually challenge him in a fight, Nurmagomedov added that whether it's him or anybody else, his competitive days are already behind him. If Paul ever gets serious about testing himself in MMA, Khabib would still be happy to provide him a home, but he knows the former social influencer turned combat sports enthusiast still has a lot to learn before he could actually challenge anybody in the cage. While Paul countered by saying he never heard from anybody connected to Nurmagomedov or his promotion, the 25-year-old undefeated boxer admitted he would consider a crossover into mixed martial arts as long as the undefeated Russian would face him as an opponent. Nurmagomedov appreciates the boxing skills that Paul has obtained since he started training, but that's still a far cry from competing with the best MMA fighters in the world. It might seem a little ridiculous for Khabib to even address a potential fight against Paul, considering the massive gap between them in skills, but these kinds of questions have continued to swirl around the former UFC champion even since he retired. He can rarely avoid the conversation about a comeback, but Khabib promises he's done with fighting, and Eagle FC has taken his full attention. Khabib Nurmagomedov isn't returning to fight anybody, much less coming out of retirement to face Jake Paul in his mixed martial arts debut. Nunes and Pena to serve as Ultimate Fighter 30 coaches. Juliana Pena is about to see a lot more of Amanda Nunes. The UFC bantamweight champion announced Friday during an appearance on the Ellen DeGeneres show that she and Nunes will coach opposite one another on the upcoming season of the Ultimate Fighter 30 and then meet in a rematch later this year. Pena and Nunes were first reported to be the frontrunners to serve as Tough 30 coaches by Ariel Helwani. Heavyweights and female flyweights will be featured in the season. A date for the rematch has not been set, but MMA Fighting's Damon Martin confirmed with Pena's management that filming for Tough 30 will begin in February. Pena and Nunes, the number 1 and number 2 at 135 pounds in MMA Fighting's global rankings respectively, will become just the third pair of women to coach the show after Ronda Rousey and Miesha Tate, as well as Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Claudia Gadelha. When Pena and Nunes face off again, it will be a rematch of their stunning encounter at UFC 269 this past December that saw Pena author one of the greatest upsets in combat sports history with a second-round submission of Nunes. The loss snapped an 8-year, 12-fight win streak for Nunes and was her first loss in 6 bantamweight title defenses. Costa ready for boxing after UFC contract expires. Paulo Costa is the newest member of the UFC roster to express his desire to box. Like most of his peers, Costa's potential combat crossover is fueled by money. With so many fighters expressing their interest to move over to boxing, it isn't surprising to see Costa's name pop up. The Brazilian fighter already had issues with the UFC over pay back in 2021. He even refused to fight in a main event because he wasn't being paid enough money. Add in the recent weight issues, and Costa's a prime candidate to jump ship when his UFC contract is up. That said, Costa understands the risk of leaving a massive promoter like UFC in favor of the unknown boxing landscape. UFC may not pay its fighters enough, but a knockout specialist like Costa will be promoted beyond belief as a member of the massive MMA promotion. It's not necessarily something Borakina would get fighting somewhere else, even though the money may be better. Jones teases possible matchup with Miocic. John Jones is back to calling his own shots, and this time it revolves around former UFC heavyweight champion against Stipe Miocic. After vacating his UFC light heavyweight title back in 2020, Jones planned to move to heavyweight for a potential super fight with Francis Ngannou. It was a dream matchup concocted in combat heaven, but contract negotiations and legal troubles for Jones ultimately slowed down his move to heavyweight. With Ngannou no longer a relevant option for his heavyweight debut, Jones is now turning his attention to Miocic. While Miocic doesn't hold the undisputed UFC heavyweight title, he's clearly the next best thing. Miocic is widely regarded as the greatest heavyweight of all time and easily has one of the best resumes in the history of the division. Jones indirectly called Miocic out during a Twitter post on Friday. Ironically, Jones's biggest rival, former UFC light heavyweight and heavyweight champion Daniel Cormier, called for this matchup just this past week. With Ngannou out for potentially the next 10 months and Jones needing a big name for his long-awaited heavyweight debut, it makes sense to bring Miocic back into the mix. Stipe, who is coming off a devastating title loss to Ngannou at UFC 260 in March 2021, deserves a high-profile fight against Jones at this point in his career. The 39-year-old former champion may only have a few fights left in the tank, so it's only fitting that Miocic gets another big-time opponent for his return to the octagon. Hermansson believes he will dethrone Adesanya. Jack Hermansson likes his chances against the current UFC 185-pound middleweight champion. The Uddevalla, Sweden native is known for his strong grappling game. Among those in his weight class, he believes there is none better, which is exactly why he'll be the one to dethrone the near-unbeatable title holder, Israel Adesanya. New Zealand's Adesanya is flawless at 185 pounds, boasting a 21-0 record. The legendary striking sensation's lone career defeat in MMA came in his attempt at capturing light heavyweight gold against Jan Blachowicz in March 2021. Adesanya fell short via unanimous decision, as saw Blachowicz get the better of the striker with his wrestling as the fight progressed. If Hermansson was to get Adesanya to the ground in a hypothetical matchup, he sees it being a wrap from there. Hermansson has proven to be a very capable and dangerous submission threat throughout his UFC run thus far. For Adesanya, he too has to defend his belt successfully when rematching Robert Whittaker next Saturday night in Houston, Texas at UFC 271. Holloway cleared of injury and has opened a backup spot for UFC 273 main event. MMA Fighting's Mike Heck confirmed with sources with knowledge of the news Friday that former UFC featherweight champion Max Holloway has recovered from the injury that forced him out of a title fight with Alexander Volkanovski, and that he is prepared to weigh in as a backup for Volkanovski's title defense at UFC 273 on April 9th against the fighter who stepped in as Holloway's replacement, Chan Sung Jung, otherwise known as the Korean Zombie. The exact nature of the injury remains undisclosed, and it's not yet known if the UFC plans to officially name Holloway as an alternate. And that's all for now, folks, but we'll be back with more interesting videos. To stay informed about the MMA industry, keep watching our videos. Tell us what you think about Poirier's move to welterweight by sounding off in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe before leaving. Signing off.